Sometimes life feels like you're standing in the middle of scattered pieces, unfinished goals, strained relationships, dreams that got dusty along the way, and you wonder how people ever manage to rebuild anything meaningful out of situations like that. It's a familiar feeling, especially in a world moving as fast as ours, where everyone seems busy, overwhelmed, and pulled in 1,000 different directions. But hidden inside one of the most underappreciated stories in the Bible is a blueprint that speaks directly to moments like these. It's the story of Nehemiah, a regular man who saw something broken and refused to look away. One who didn't wait for the perfect timing, the perfect resources, or the perfect circumstances, but stepped into action with clarity, courage, and deep conviction. His approach wasn't loud or flashy. It was grounded, practical, and surprisingly relevant to the kinds of challenges people in the United States face today. If you've been sensing it's time to rebuild something in your life, this story offers a system that might be exactly what you need. There is a kind of strength that comes only from honesty, and Nehemiah shows this from the very beginning of his journey. He starts by allowing himself to fully see and feel the reality of what was happening in his homeland. He didn't minimize it, ignore it, or pretend it wasn't that bad. He asked questions and welcomed the truth, even though the truth was painful. That willingness to face the real condition of things is the foundation of every transformation. In our modern world, we often try to outrun discomfort with noise, with work, with distractions, with optimism that sometimes borders on denial. But the kind of progress that actually lasts begins with acknowledging what is broken, where the gaps are, and what hasn't been working. When someone finally admits they've been burned out for months, or that a relationship hasn't felt right for years, or that financial issues have been growing quietly in the background, that honesty becomes a starting point, not a setback. Nehemiah teaches us that seeing clearly is a form of courage, and clarity is the first tool you need if you're going to build anything meaningful. Once he faced the truth, Nehemiah didn't immediately rush into action. Instead, he spent time grounding himself, processing, reflecting, and aligning his internal world before stepping into the external work. This step is subtle, but it may be the most transformative part of his entire story. In a time when everything feels urgent, and people feel pressure to respond instantly, his decision to pause, reflect, and connect with his deepest values is a reminder that real strength begins within. When the world feels chaotic, many people try to fix everything around them while ignoring what's happening inside them. They try to repair situations without repairing their focus, their beliefs, or their emotional state. Nehemiah's approach shows that slowing down does not delay success. It prepares you for it. Whether someone prays, journals, meditates, takes a quiet walk, or simply sits in silence long enough to hear their own thoughts, that alignment is what keeps them from reacting out of fear or frustration. It's what helps them act with purpose. It's what keeps their decisions grounded. Nehemiah reminds us that you cannot lead others, or lead your own life, if you are disconnected from your center. When Nehemiah finally stepped forward, he did something that often stops people before they ever begin. He asked boldly for what he needed. His request wasn't small or timid. It was clear, direct, and full of vision. He asked for permission to go rebuild the city, for protection on the journey, and for the materials to complete the project. Many people hesitate at this point in their own journey. They fear rejection, judgment, embarrassment, or inconvenience. They shrink their requests because they don't want to seem demanding. But Nehemiah shows that asking boldly is not selfish. It's strategic. It opens doors that quiet hope alone cannot. In today's world, this might look like asking a supervisor for training, requesting more responsibilities at work, applying for a grant, telling a partner what you truly need, reaching out for mentorship, or seeking support during a hard season. Opportunities rarely fall into people's laps without initiative, and initiative requires courage. Nehemiah teaches that you don't wait for the perfect moment to ask. You ask when the vision matters enough that silence would be a bigger risk than speaking up. With permission granted, Nehemiah didn't start building right away. He didn't announce anything prematurely or push people into action before they understood the plan. Instead, he went out at night when no one was watching and examined the wall piece by piece. He took time to study the work ahead of him quietly, privately, and strategically. This moment highlights the quiet power of preparation. It's tempting to jump straight into action because movement feels productive, but without clarity and structure, movement can lead to exhaustion instead of progress. Nehemiah recognized that a vision without a plan is only a wish. He needed to understand the size of the task, the weak points in the wall, and the distribution of work before mobilizing anyone. This principle translates perfectly into modern challenges. Whether you're starting a business, rebuilding a relationship, fixing personal habits, or restructuring your financial life, planning is often what makes the difference between frustration and achievement. Planning doesn't have to be complicated. It can start with a simple outline, a list of priorities, a calendar, or a strategy for dividing large goals into manageable steps. Nehemiah shows that thoughtful planning doesn't slow momentum, it creates it. When you understand what needs to be done and in what order, confidence rises, stress decreases, the path forward becomes clearer, and most importantly, you are no longer guessing. You are building with intentionality. Part of his brilliance came from understanding that rebuilding was not something he could do alone. Even with a clear plan, the work required too many hands, too much endurance, and too much time for one person. Instead of taking on a hero complex, Nehemiah involved everyone. Families repaired the sections closest to their homes. Workers, leaders, and volunteers all took responsibility for their part. This approach created ownership, unity, and shared strength. It also ensured that no one burned out trying to carry the weight alone. In the context of modern American life, where independence is often celebrated to the point where people feel pressured to solve everything on their own, Nehemiah's approach is a refreshing reminder that community is an asset, not a weakness. Asking for help, partnering with others, delegating responsibilities, and sharing the load can transform a heavy burden into a manageable mission. People thrive when they work together. Whether it's a team at work, a supportive partner at home, a group of friends, or a community organization, shared strength produces accelerated results. No matter how capable or motivated someone is, doing everything alone eventually leads to exhaustion. Nehemiah shows that success is multiplied when people unite around a shared vision. As the rebuilding began, Nehemiah encountered resistance almost immediately. His enemies mocked him, questioned his motives, criticized the work, and tried to sow doubt among the people. Eventually, the opposition escalated into active threats. This part of the story reveals a truth that many people overlook. Any meaningful progress will attract pressure. Work worth doing is rarely easy. When someone starts improving their health, pursuing education, strengthening their finances, rebuilding a marriage, or launching a dream, there will always be distractions, critics, internal doubts, or external complications. The presence of resistance does not mean the plan is wrong. It means the work matters. Nehemiah never allowed opposition to derail him. He acknowledged it, adapted when necessary, and kept moving. His most memorable response came when his enemies tried to lure him away from the work with ongoing interruptions. His reply was powerful: "I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down." Those words reflect a mindset that is essential for anyone trying to reach a significant goal. Staying focused in a world full of noise is an act of discipline. It requires knowing what deserves your attention and what does not. It requires distinguishing between distractions disguised as invitations and legitimate opportunities. It requires choosing long-term purpose over short-term emotions. Nehemiah wasn't arrogant, he was committed. He understood that stepping away from the work to answer every critic or entertain every distraction would weaken the entire mission. His focus was his strength. For people today, Keeping that kind of focus might mean limiting social media consumption, protecting personal boundaries, saying no to unnecessary obligations, or refusing to engage in conversations that drain energy instead of fueling progress. Nehemiah models a certain kind of resilience, the ability to continue building even when everything around you tries to pull you in another direction. Despite the ongoing threats and discouragement, Nehemiah encouraged the people continually. He reminded them of their purpose, strengthened their resolve, and helped them see the bigger picture beyond the daily struggles. This highlights another critical truth: motivation fades, but meaning sustains. The people were not just stacking stones, they were restoring dignity, safety, identity, and hope. When individuals understand the why behind their actions, the work becomes more than a task, it becomes a mission. And missions carry people through fatigue, frustration, and setbacks. In modern terms, this means identifying why you're rebuilding a part of your life. Are you improving your finances to provide stability for your family? Are you focusing on self-growth because you've spent years losing yourself? Are you repairing a relationship because it matters too much to abandon? When you remember the deeper purpose, perseverance becomes more natural. Throughout the process, Nehemiah balanced faith and action seamlessly. He prayed while he built, strategized while he worked, and kept his heart grounded while his hands stayed busy. This balance is powerful because it shows that hope and effort are not opposites, they are partners. Many people fall into extremes. Some rely solely on effort until they burn out, while others wait passively for change without engaging the work required to make it happen. Nehemiah modeled a different rhythm: trust while acting, reflect while progressing, and stay spiritually grounded while physically committed. It's a holistic approach that keeps a person steady even during turbulent seasons. For people today, whether religious, spiritual, or simply grounded in moral values, the principle remains meaningful. Inner strength fuels outward success. As the work progressed, a remarkable transformation took place among the people. Individuals who once felt discouraged began to see visible progress. Each repaired section of the wall strengthened both their confidence and their momentum. This progression underscores a principle that applies across every area of life. Small, consistent progress fuels motivation. Sometimes people avoid starting because they believe they need to make massive, immediate changes, but breakthroughs often happen through steady, intentional steps. Nehemiah understood that momentum is built brick by brick, day by day. When people see results, even small ones, it activates hope, commitment, and discipline. That's why celebrating progress is not superficial, it's strategic. Whether someone is rebuilding emotional health, managing debt, establishing boundaries, or developing new habits, acknowledging each step forward reinforces the belief that change is possible. Even with progress visible, Nehemiah remained vigilant. He knew that success could make people complacent, and complacency could expose them to danger, so he continued adapting, adjusting, and protecting the work. This flexibility is part of what made him effective. Many people assume that once they gain momentum, they can relax completely, but life rarely unfolds in a straight line. Challenges evolve, needs shift, strategies must adapt. Nehemiah teaches that wisdom involves monitoring the environment, anticipating potential issues, and adjusting without losing direction. Flexibility is not a sign of inconsistency, it's a sign of strength. It allows a person to continue moving forward even when conditions change. As the project approached completion, Nehemiah and the people faced one final wave of intimidation. Their enemies tried to frighten them into stopping, suggesting that the work was doomed. But by this point, the people had built not only a wall, but also confidence, unity, and resilience. They were not the same discouraged group they had been at the beginning. This transformation shows that the process of rebuilding shapes the builder as much as the finished product. The act of persisting through challenges develops character, courage, and clarity. Often, people ask for change without realizing that the journey will stretch them, strengthen them, and grow them in ways they didn't expect. Nehemiah's story reveals that every step of the rebuilding process prepares you for the weight of the finished work. When the final stone was placed, something incredible happened. The wall that should have taken years was completed in 52 days. This wasn't because the people rushed or cut corners. It happened because they followed a clear system: honesty, alignment, boldness, planning, collaboration, and resilience. The speed of their success wasn't a miracle of time. It was a miracle of unity, focus, and disciplined action. And once the wall was finished, the people didn't just celebrate the physical structure, they celebrated the renewal of hope. Their identity was restored, their confidence reborn, and their future reimagined. In our modern world, the kind of rebuilding people long for may not involve walls of stone, but the principles remain exactly the same. Whether you're rebuilding your career, your faith, your relationships, your finances, your emotional health, or your sense of purpose, Nehemiah's hidden system is a roadmap for real transformation. It reminds you that growth starts with truth, strengthens with alignment, expands through boldness, stabilizes through planning, accelerates through community, and endures through resilient focus. His story is not a distant tale from an ancient world. It is a living template for anyone standing at the beginning of a new chapter. No matter how scattered things may feel right now, rebuilding is not only possible, it is powerful. And just like Nehemiah, you may discover that what felt broken at first becomes the foundation for something stronger than before.